Okay, hello everyone. This is my presentation, Saving the Future, and it's about why we care about the future of the Earth. Next, please. Next slide. So, a brief overview, we're going to review how bad the climate crisis is, our selfish and unselfish motives for helping the climate, and how we can do more for the environment. Next. So just how screwed are we? Well, there's a crap ton of other stuff, but here are just a few of the main ones. So there's carbon dioxide levels rising temperatures, increase in natural disasters like tsunamis, wildfires, hurricanes, literally everywhere. There's depletion of natural resources, and we're going through the 6th mass extinction. And obviously, there's also pollution everywhere. Next. So, rising greenhouse gas levels are a huge thing. So as you can see in the graph, our carbon dioxide levels have been fine, rising and lowering periodically until around 2 centuries ago when the Industrial Revolution started. It kept rising when it was supposed to drop and is growing exponentially. In 70 years, we have nearly doubled the maximum it has been over the last million years. There is no way this can be natural. Our carbon sinks, or places that absorb and keep carbon dioxide from being released back into the atmosphere, are also running out of space. Trees, oceans, they're all running out of space. And it's really, okay, wait. Trees, the awesome things that literally keep us from suffocating, are being chopped down at an alarming rate. It also leads to problems like ocean acidification and acid rain. Acid rain is obviously bad for a variety of reasons. It's dangerous for people collecting water directly from wells, and it kills plants and crops. CO2 dissolves in the ocean, acidifying it to dangerously high levels for certain marine species. Next slide. All these greenhouse gases are trapping heat and radiation in the atmosphere, warming up the planet. Ice caps have been rapidly melting over the year, even unfreezing permafrost, which is supposed to be permanently frozen. Ice caps are like a protective layer over the Earth, reflecting excess heat and cooling the planet. So basically, humans have been damaging this planet so much, we are literally melting our global cooling system. The Arctic is considered an ocean, but there used to be sea ice, which is formed directly on top of the water, but by now around 95% of the thickest and oldest sea ice is gone. Habitat for animals such as polar bears, seals, walruses, hares, penguins, and birds are also disappearing. Aside from the Arctic, it's also changing fish spawning ground in other parts of the globe, moving them away from communities who rely on these fisheries for food. Melting glaciers, ice formed on land, is also contributing to rising oceans, creeping up our coasts and drowning islands like the Maldives, a small cluster of islands in the Indian Ocean. Even though the ocean is only rising a few millimeters a year, it's a lot for a country whose highest point is only 2.4 meters high. It's estimated to almost completely disappear by 2085. In the Arctic, exposed patches of dark land and sea ice is reversing the cooling effect, changing air currents, forming more frequent vortexes and storms. Melting sea ice in the Antarctic is also creating new water currents, collapsing various fisheries. This last century, the global average temperature rose around 1.5 degrees Celsius. Doesn't seem like much, right? But the average global temperature of the last ice age was only around 6 degrees lower. The rate of this increase has, much like carbon dioxide, nearly doubled in the last 50 years. Next. Not only do natural disasters affect humans and cost billions of dollars in damage, it also kills and damages habitat for all the other life in the area. Disasters like droughts, floods, hurricanes, wildfires, and monsoons have all increased exponentially over the last 50 years. Again, this sudden growth is unnatural. Extreme weather, as you can see in the graph, used to be rare for the generation born in the 1900s. Now, it would be weird if we didn't hear about hurricanes popping up on the East Coast or in the South. In California, we have annual wildfires, multiple around the state. The fire kills people, but also large areas of forest, home to several species of animals. It also releases an incredible 68 million tons of carbon dioxide in California only, the equivalent to an entire year's worth of electricity for the entire state. Just this January, Australia turned into a burning hell. Next. Scientists say that we're in the 6th mass extinction. The last few times everything died, they were natural disasters, but this time humans are the disaster. We're overhunting, destroying habitats, polluting, urbanizing, and basically committing war crimes on the environment in general. Out of all the species we know exist, many are already going endangered and extinct. Think of everything we haven't discovered. We're killing them from our humanly activities without even knowing they existed. All of the ecosystems are also very intricate, causing a ripple every time something goes extinct. For example, in a food web, if something goes extinct, it will cause its prey to overpopulate and its predators to die out, throwing one part of the food web out of balance. Next. To feed the insatiable greed of mankind, Earth has been chipped bit by bit. Wait, it's the previous one. Yes. Gas, trees, and even fresh water is becoming more scarce. The Amazon rainforest is half its original size, and Great Britain only has around 2% left of its original woodland. We're also running out of fossil fuels with increasing demand, one of the reasons gas prices are soaring. Although it's a big part of the economy and profitable business, we still want to survive in the future, so we have to switch to alternative energy if we want to survive. The two major storage compartments of fresh water are groundwater and glaciers, but they're also disappearing. Precipitation is too irregular, so people have to rely on these two major sources. Mountain snowfall is also decreasing. Fracking contaminates the air and water so much, all oil leaked into the rivers nearby is enough to set it on fire. Next. So, humans have littered every dimension of the earth, the air, the water, and the land. Our vehicles and factories release tons of toxic chemicals like carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide, apart from other greenhouse gases. These poisonous gases are bad for health, but especially for vulnerable groups like the elderly and people with asthma. As mentioned before, fires can also cause massive amounts of air pollution, such as the smoke from the crop burning in northern India, creeping over to New Delhi in October and November as a thick blanket of smog. You can play the video. So as you can see, the pollution is so bad over there that the visibility is really low. You can't see the cars in front of you. And going on to water pollution, all the water that goes down the drain flows to the ocean, and if you wash your car in the driveway, the soap flows into the rivers. Nitrates from fertilizer for crops also make their way into the water, killing fish and other aquatic species. Even tap water gets contaminated through improper disposal of substances. In the middle of the ocean, there's actually a giant ball of garbage called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And it's exactly what it sounds like, except it's actually two giant clusters, one on the east and one on the west. It's filled with plastic covering an area about 3 times the size of France. And that's only the cluster that's closer to California. These plastics are not biodegradable and can keep floating around for thousands of years. They block out light to photosynthetic algae, disrupting the entire ecosystem. All the birds that live on the island of trash eat it and die. Beaches around the world are also covered in trash, some with more garbage than there is sand. On land, our landfills are being overflowed, and there's litter everywhere in public places, despite the obvious locations of the trash cans. Ironically, the poorest countries are the ones that contribute the least to this problem, but are the most affected by it. And in turn, the larger countries continue going on as long as their people aren't affected as much by it. And again, the poorest countries don't have enough resources to even combat the problem. Next. So from our own perspective, is it selfish to help the Earth? Some people argue that it's self-preservation. We know that the Earth can basically throw all of the humans off the planet like it did with the dinosaurs and repopulate it with other species, which makes the world a better place in the long run. Therefore, people who aren't affected by it don't care, and the people who are affected the most care the most. This is true to some extent, but what about the people who aren't affected? What about the people who still care? Next. By logic, people only care about the future they will see, because anything else afterwards will not affect them. But we have people we care about. How could we continue using up all these resources, knowing that this directly endangers the future of our loved ones? There's also the guilt, a part of human empathy, something equally as natural as selfishness. It's the guilt that our combined actions endanger not only ourselves, our future, but everything and everyone else. People who don't deserve this, and species who don't even know this is happening. Next. We say we invest our resources, money, time, so that our children can have a better life in the future. But looking at the bigger picture, we're all part of an elaborate financial scheme, a Ponzi scheme. We promise our children a brighter future and plunder resources right now to use for them, promising them an even greater reward that they can reap. We say, use these resources for development so that someday you'll be able to have the technology to solve for time or fix the Earth. We use the resources to support them in gaining back the very resources we used. Someday, we say, but how soon is this someday? Is it half a millennium? 100 years? Or 50 years maybe? This someday will not come because it's now. It's already affecting us, and soon we'll come to a breaking point where Earth can no longer support us. We have cut down over half our rainforests, and it's estimated that by the middle of the 21st century, there will be less than a quarter left. On top of that, by the middle of the century, there will be 9 billion humans living on this planet, requiring 50% more food, 50% more power, 30% more fresh water, and on top of that, 50% less carbon emissions in order to avoid disastrous climate change in the future. We are using up resources at the rate only 1.5 Earths can sustain, but obviously we do not have 1.5 Earths. The middle of the century is in 30 years. We, the future, have 30 years to achieve a seemingly impossible goal. We have already procrastinated too much. It's like a homework assignment, except now our lives depend on doing this assignment. Next. Next. Pearl?
And here we have a poem that I wrote that is in relation to everything that Anika was saying. I titled it For You. It feels like I have no say, at times even a choice. Why do I feel this way? It's like I have no voice. Life's been yanked from my hand, and my future's already unclear. We're standing on withering land, and the end seems near. A devastating and inconvenient truth, but what can be done? What can we do? In order to save the earth, you have to remember it all starts with you.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. So, have I scared you yet? Well, you should be. If we don't do anything, most of you guys will live to see this disaster. So, with community work, you can join an action team or be involved with your community in general. Participate in strikes. Use social media to your advantage and spread the word that this crisis is happening. And in general, just try to invoke change in your community. For the smaller things, obviously you should recycle, reuse, save resources like closing the lights when you step out of the room. Don't leave your water running and stuff like that. Also, donating to these environmental protection agencies is obviously beneficial. And most importantly, you should be creative. Like, for example, if you have one of those plastic bags from the shopping market, you can use it as a trash bag for your trash cans. If you have like extra shirts or stuff, you can use them for crafts. If you have extra cardboard boxes, don't throw them away. You can use them to store other things. And here are our sources. Next. Okay, yep, we're done. Thank you, everyone.